We must defend the truth at all costs, even if we return to being only 12. St. John Paul II.
The story of St Guthlac of England and the connection with St Francis of Assisi. When we think of saints like St Francis of Assisi, it's easy to recall his simplicity and love for nature. But have you ever heard of St Guthlac of England, whose life was as powerful an example as that of the saint from Assisi? You know the story of this humble servant of God, who, amidst the opulence of his time, chose to live the gospel in a radical way. While the world seeks wealth and power, these two saints show us that true freedom lies in simplicity and detachment. Want to know how their lives can transform yours? Keep watching to discover how evangelical poverty and love for the poor can be the key to authentic spirituality today. Historical context. St Guthlac of England, or St Guthlac of Dunstan, is a figure whose origins trace back to the period of England's Christianization. Although many details about his life are shrouded in mystery, due to the scarcity of historical documents, traditional accounts and oral tradition offer significant insights into his spiritual and pastoral impact. St Guthlac was born around the 7th century into a noble Anglo-Saxon family. His youth was marked by religious education, influenced early on by missionary monks who brought Christianity to English lands. At that time, England was divided into several pagan kingdoms, and the Christian presence was still growing. Guthlac stood out for his intelligence and piety from a young age, receiving training in monastic schools, where he developed a deep devotion to prayer and ascetic life. Feeling called to religious life, Guthlac joined a Benedictine monastery. Benedictine spirituality, centered on prayer, work, and scripture reading, shaped Guthlac's character. He was ordained a priest and quickly gained a reputation as a man of great spiritual discernment and charity. His reputation for holiness spread, leading many to seek him for spiritual guidance. Like St Francis of Assisi, Guthlac embraced evangelical poverty and lived in extreme simplicity, trusting in divine providence for his daily needs. In a time of religious transition, Guthlac stood out as a tireless missionary. He was sent to remote regions of England to preach the gospel. During his missions, Guthlac displayed a deep love for creation and animals, living a lifestyle reminiscent of St. Francis of Assisi. Accounts describe his practice of feeding wild animals and his advocacy for nature preservation. Guthlac was also known for his ability to resolve conflicts between local tribes, always promoting peace and reconciliation based on Christian teachings. In addition to his missionary work, St. Guthlac was responsible for founding several monasteries and churches in England. One of his greatest legacies was the founding of an abbey dedicated to St. Dunstan, in honor of the Archbishop of Canterbury, who was one of his spiritual models. These monasteries became centers of spirituality, education, and aid to the poor. Guthlac encouraged his monks to lead lives of intense prayer, hard work, and devotion to charity. For him, monastic life was a way to draw closer to the gospel in a radical manner, stripping away anything that might hinder full communion with God. In the final years of his life, St. Guthlac dedicated himself to prayer and writing. Although most of his writings were lost over time, some fragments survive, reflecting his love for simplicity and creation. Even weakened by age, Guthlac continued advising kings and nobles, always insisting on the importance of living an authentic faith detached from material wealth. He passed away in 710, surrounded by his disciples, leaving behind a spiritual legacy marked by humility, charity, and devotion to poverty. Devotion to St. Guthlac grew rapidly after his death, with reports of miracles attributed to his intercession. He was canonized by the Church in the 8th century, being officially recognized as a saint. His feast day is celebrated on August 22nd, and his memory is especially honored in monastic and parish communities in England. The legacy of St. Guthlac serves as a reminder that true holiness manifests in simplicity of life, material detachment, and love for the poor and creation. To this day, he remains an inspiring example of Christian living for those seeking to follow the gospel in a radical way. Shared virtues and spirituality. St. Guthlac of England and St. Francis of Assisi are remarkable examples of saints who embraced humility, simplicity, and love for the poor as pillars of their spiritual lives. St. Guthlac's spirituality was marked by material detachment and deep compassion for the needy. Like Francis, he lived in total dependence on divine providence, rejecting any form of luxury or comfort. Guthlac saw simplicity as an expression of true love, believing that by freeing oneself from the riches of this world, one could draw closer to God and better serve others. In addition to simplicity, both saints possessed a spirituality deeply connected with creation. Guthlac, like Francis, considered nature and animals as God's creatures, deserving of respect and care. For these saints, caring for creation was not just an act of love, but also a way to live the gospel practically and coherently. Guthlac taught that Christian spirituality must include a caring and loving outlook toward all creatures, recognizing in them the goodness of the Creator and the harmony of creation. Connection between St Guthlac and St Francis is not just theoretical, but is reflected in the way both lived the gospel radically. In their lives, evangelical poverty was more than a material renunciation, it was a path to holiness. They teach us that true wealth lies in a life of prayer, devotion, and service to others. These saints challenge the modern world, marked by consumerism and individualism, to rediscover the beauty of a simple life and detachment, values that transcend eras and remain as living examples of authentic faith. Inspiring stories. One of the most well-known stories about St Guthlac involves his visit to a famine-stricken village. Upon arriving, he noticed the residents were desperate, having nothing to eat. Guthlac, moved by the situation, gave away all the food he had brought with him and with unwavering faith began praying for God to provide what was needed. According to reports, after his prayers, an unexpected amount of food was found by the villagers, enough to feed everyone for several weeks. This story echoes the spirituality of St. Francis of Assisi, who also believed that by giving generously, divine providence would never fail. St. Francis of Assisi, in a similar example, once encountered a leper, figure avoided by all due to fear and disdain. Guided by Christian love, Francis dismounted from his horse, embraced the leper, and kissed him. This act of profound charity and detachment from personal comfort reflects the same essence lived by St. Guthlac. Both saints teach us that true Christian love goes beyond words. It manifests in concrete action for the most marginalized. It's not just about giving something material, but giving oneself with compassion and humility. These stories are more than mere historical accounts. They provoke us to reflect on how we live our faith. In a world where selfishness and indifference prevail, the example of St. Guthlac and St. Francis reminds us that genuine Christianity is lived in service to others, in unconditional love, and in detachment from material things. We can draw inspiration from these examples in our daily lives, whether by offering help to those in need or by being more generous with our time and resources. How can we apply these lessons today? This reflection leads us to the next point. Relevance for today. The examples of St. Guthlac and St. Francis are strikingly relevant to the challenges we face today. We live in a society that values rampant consumerism, where the relentless pursuit of material goods often obscures spirituality and Christian values. St. Guthlac, with his life of poverty and simplicity, and St. Francis, with his radical renunciation of wealth, show us an alternative path, a life centered on the gospel, detachment, and caring for others. These saints remind us that true happiness lies not in accumulating, but in giving, serving, and loving. In a world increasingly marked by materialism and lack of charity, the lessons of these saints become even more urgent. Detachment from material things is not just an old or outdated idea. It's a present-day necessity for finding inner peace and spiritual freedom. St. Guthlac and St. Francis lived in different times, but faced challenges similar to ours: the temptation of power, the pursuit of status, and indifference to the needy. Today we can apply these principles by embracing a simpler life, practicing active charity, and caring for creation responsibly. The spirituality of Guthlac and Francis also challenges us to rethink our daily priorities. How can we live a life more aligned with the gospel amidst modern pressures? Perhaps it's time to reflect on how we use our time, money, and talents. We can start with small changes, like supporting causes that help the poor, reducing our rampant consumption, and creating spaces for prayer and meditation. The inspiration from these saints is an invitation to seek the essential and rediscover the value of simple things, a message that leads us to the next reflection. Spiritual reflection. The legacy of St Guthlac and St Francis invites us to a profound reflection on how we live our faith in a world marked by hustle and materialism. Both saints, by embracing evangelical poverty and simplicity, show us that the path to true spiritual peace lies in renouncing the superfluous and dedicating oneself to others. In a context where accumulating wealth is often seen as synonymous with success, the lives of these saints challenge us to seek a different kind of wealth, one found in a life of holiness, charity, and detachment. Reflecting on these examples, it's impossible not to consider the modern challenges that test our spirituality. Consumerism, lack of charity, and disrespect for creation are problems that surround us daily. St. Guthlac and St. Francis inspire us to swim against the current by adopting a lifestyle that values what is eternal rather than what is fleeting. This doesn't mean abandoning the world, but transforming how we relate to it. Small changes, like adopting more conscious consumption and seeking to live simplicity in our homes, can be significant steps in this direction. This reflection wouldn't be complete without an invitation to concrete practice. How about setting aside a daily moment for prayer and meditation on the example of these saints? Or perhaps choosing a practical way to exercise charity and care for the environment in your community. The lives of St. Guthlac and St. Francis are a constant invitation to conversion and commitment to the gospel. If we allow their examples to touch our hearts, we can discover where God calls us to be more generous, simple, and holy in our daily lives. Prayer to St. Guthlac. The official prayer of St. Guthlac of England is as follows. O God, who granted St. Guthlac the grace to seek you above all else in a life of prayer, charity, and sacrifice, grant us, through his intercession, the grace to always live in accordance with your will and to seek holiness in all our actions. This prayer reflects the life and teachings of St. Guthlac, who stood out for his devotion and love for nature, as well as his contemplative life as a hermit.
Embark on a spiritual journey with our new ebook, 50 Saints, Stories and Prayers for Divine Intervention. This inspiring collection delves into the lives of 50 revered saints, offering their powerful stories and heartfelt prayers to guide you towards divine intervention. Perfect for personal reflection or group study, this ebook is a must-have for every devout Catholic. Enhance your faith and discover the strength of these saintly figures. Find the download link in the pinned comment below.
Spiritual proposal. Looking at the lives of saints like St. Guthlac and St. Francis of Assisi, we are invited to introspection about our own spiritual journey. These men chose a path of simplicity, humility, and love for the poor that transcends time and continues to inspire us. But this inspiration only becomes real when we allow their lives to impact our attitude. Perhaps it's time to ask ourselves, where in our routine can we cultivate more simplicity and generosity? This reflection challenges us to find ways to live a more authentic faith, where love and detachment guide our choices. The example of St. Guthlac and St. Francis is not reserved only for monasteries or those living a religious vocation. Anyone, in any context, can draw closer to the values these saints embody. How about starting with a simple gesture, like setting aside time for daily prayer or dedicating part of your resources to help those in need? The spirituality these saints lived was a spirituality of the everyday, where small acts like tending a garden or sharing a meal with someone were done with love and devotion. It's in these details that faith becomes tangible and transforms the heart. At the end of this reflection, the invitation arises. Take a moment now to pray, asking God for the grace to live with more detachment and generosity. You can draw inspiration from traditional prayers or simply meditate on how to apply the example of these saints in your life. The spirituality of St. Guthlac and St. Francis is an inexhaustible source of teachings for modern times. The more we allow their examples to shape our actions, the closer we come to a life of holiness. Now, with hearts open to this inspiration, we are ready to dive into the next stage of our spiritual journey. In light of the example of St. Guthlac and St. Francis, the challenge remains: how can we apply this wisdom in our lives today? Are we willing to let go of small vanities and comforts to draw closer to a life more centered on love for others? Perhaps the change you need lies in something as simple as a gesture of generosity or a daily moment of prayer. Transformation begins in small daily choices and the values we put into practice. If these teachings resonated with you, Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you'll find more inspirations to grow in faith and live Christian values more deeply. Now, how about watching the next video that's appearing on the screen? Might be the next step in your spiritual journey.